The Hawk That Dare Not Hunt by Day by Scott Odell, Chapter 28. William Tyndale, to my surprise and great delight, I found on the very day we docked in Antwerp. Indeed, sighting us from afar, he was at the pier to greet the ship, standing where I had seen him last, his hand upraised as if only a moment and not a month had gone by, as if it were all a gesture of hail and farewell that had endured during the time that I had been away. "How's your grammar?" "The reading," were the first words he spoke as I leaped from the ship and embraced him. "Good," I shouted, "good. I've signed a legal document and read every word of it. Almost every word, and signed my name too. Here." I reached into my doublet and pulled for the contract and proudly presented it, expecting him to read it at that moment, there on the dock. Instead, he remarked that he would read it later. What a keen disappointment this was to me, for I had looked ahead for days to his commendation. "The Bibles are safe in London," I said, presuming that they were uppermost in his thoughts and therefore the news he was waiting to hear. "I heard this from a Dutch captain only yesterday," he said, "the first word, and it was wonderful to hear." He threw his arms around me and said, "Thank you, son, you've done so much." He had never used the word son before, and I was astonished to hear it, pleased too. "I likewise hear that the book sells," he said. "It sells, and they ask for more. The booksellers ask, people ask." A bitter gray wind was blowing down the channel straight out of the North Sea. It was too cold to take a deep breath, and I suggested that we go to my cabin where I had a good coal fire burning. "This is Monday, and on this day I go through the streets along the dock," Tyndale said. "The people here are very poor, and I help them if I can. I can go tomorrow, but this is the day I usually go. This is the day that they look for me." He didn't ask me to go with him, and to be truthful, I didn't want to. It was bitter cold. I had contraband cargo to unload and sell. I was thinking about the contract in my pocket and was anxious to talk to him and to friends about it. I hung back, but in the end, in a bad humor, I followed him along the dock and into an ice-rutted lane. There were no houses on the lane, only hovels fastened together, one against the other, like a colony of gray barnacles. The street had a name that meant Fishtail Row in English. Only fishermen lived there, but no one had fished for weeks because of the storms. It smelled like clink, and the people were also gray-looking from hunger. But they could move around and share their misery. They seemed happier than the people in Clink prison, but not much. Tyndale carried small packets of food in his cloak and passed them out where he thought they were most needed, mostly among widows whose husbands had been drowned. He had a bag filled with small coins, and these he passed out to the children. When the packets and the coin were gone, he stopped to talk, saying words of encouragement where he thought they might help. Sometimes not talking at all, but just sitting in silence as a partner and a sharer of misery. We spent the whole day on Fishtail Row, were present at 2 funerals, and saw a baby who had been born 3 days before and was not much larger than my fist. Its mother had no milk to feed it. At nightfall, we went the short way to the English adventurers' quarters. There, a big pine fire was burning, and everyone was happily red-faced and merry. We found a snug corner where we could talk without being overheard. The English adventurers were strongly Lutheran in their sympathies, as strong as the Hanseatic merchants at the Steelyard in London, but it was not wise to trust the potboys, the valets, and others who could be bribed to repeat a word or a whisper that they had picked up. Besides this danger, there were a number of spies in Antwerp, some employed by King Henry and others by Thomas More, all of them, to a man, anxious to get their hands on Tyndale and haul him back to England to face trial as a heretic. Tyndale was safe with a merchant adventurers company on the docks surrounding its warehouse and on Fishtail Row. Everywhere else in the cities of Rotterdam, Antwerp, and Amsterdam, his life was in danger. We ate, which helped to remove some of the chill from our bones, and I again brought forth my contract with the New World Exploration and Trading Company. Tyndale's gaze fell at once upon the name Herbert Belsey. "By Satan's muddy bones," he exclaimed. "However did you make connections with Belsey?" "By circumstances, the last thing I would do otherwise." I had expected Tyndale's criticism and was ready for it. I explained everything from the day that I learned that I was the owner of the ship. I told him about the night that we were caught by Belsey and his gang. I told him how we had been held in chains, how the ship had been threatened with seizure, everything until the signing of the pact. Everything except my feelings toward my Uncle Jack, for the reason that I was still confused about them. He read carefully, commented upon the wording, satisfied himself that the pact was not fraudulent in purpose, complimented me upon my signature, and handed it back with his blessing. "You have made a pact with deserts," he said, looking at me steadfastly, "and may the devil fetch them should they turn against you, which they will at the first chance. I have plans to protect myself. They must, you must, for they will not protect you." We went back to the ship together. Tyndale spent the night, and together we loaded 800 Bibles at dawn. "I'm working now on the Old Testament," Tyndale said. "Probably in Marburg, near Frankfurt, is where we'll print it. You can always reach me here, however, through James Curtis, my closest friend in Antwerp. He'll know me by the name of Dalton henceforth, which you will note is like Tyndale, with a couple of letters changed about." "I'll use Dalton," I said. "It's good practice in this perilous times for men like you to change their names. I'll always ask for Dalton." "By the by," Tyndale said, "have you read the New Testament yet?" "Of course not. Why do I ask? Ask the bird? Ask the beasts?" "No, but I intend to. I will. I've been busy." "I wrote this book for you and for others like you," Tyndale said, trying hard not to sound like a schoolmaster. We had already hidden the Bibles away in the secret place at the foot of the mainmast, but Tyndale extracted the wooden pins, let down the top timber, and saying he wanted to give me one, took forth a fresh copy of his testament. Now I had two. Then he led me to my cabin and there wrote on the fly-leaf, "Quod amim," then below it in English, "Out of love," and signed his name. "Which do you like?" he asked me. "Which strikes your ear and holds it most?" "Out of love," I said. I didn't see him again until the day I left for London. There was contraband corn to dispose of, which I did at triple profit, a cargo to assemble, chiefly olive oil from Spain, and a mainmast to buy. The latter I shopped for everywhere, and finally bought in Antwerp, a fine straight timber grown in Sweden, somewhat shorter in length than commonly used by the English and German ships, but favored by the Spaniards, since it was possible with a shorter mainmast to sail closer to the wind. Even then in April, I had begun to outfit for my first voyage out to the Indies, which was Belsey's wish. My last day in Antwerp, I called on James Curtis, who dealt in groceries and had a warehouse with the English adventurers, asking for Dalton instead of Tyndale. "He's leaving for Marburg," Curtis said, "tomorrow, I think, and not too soon as things are turning out. 10 days ago, I had an unexpected caller. His name was Edward Lee, and he carried with him credentials from the king." "Very high credentials?" I asked. "This Edward Lee is ambassador to Spain and was on his way home," Curtis continued. "He said that the king was most anxious to get in touch with Tyndale, and could I help? I told him that I knew no one by that name. That evening, Tyndale came down to the ship to give me a message. I'm leaving for Marburg, but I'll be back here soon again, he said. I forgot to tell you that on Saturdays I spend the days with families who have been persecuted for their religion, driven from England, and have fled here for safety. They are poor and need help. If you learn to read the New Testament, you can go to the sail loft where they live and read it to them. There'll be days when I'll not be among the fishermen, and days when I won't be with the persecutor. I don't wish to impose this upon you as a duty, but you may want to help when you're here. I don't promise to make visits, I said, but I do solemnly promise to read the Testament. If you read the Testament, you will make the visits, Tyndale said. Then I'll do both, I said, and keep a good watch also on your partner, Belsey. May you go with God, I said, and we embraced as we parted. End of chapter 28.